Hello, and welcome back to Bad Canadians. I'm your host, Jared Michael. Here at Bad Canadians, we attempt to understand Canada's contrarians. We believe contrarians are sometimes the only people holding valuable information the rest of society desperately needs. All right, well, thank you again for coming back to Bad Canadians. Very excited for today's guest. Today on the show, we have Ted Smith. Ted Smith is a longtime cannabis medical marijuana advocate. He's been fighting this battle for the last 30 years. He runs the longest running cannabis compassion club in Canada. It's called the Victoria Cannabis Buyers Club. He is the founder and now the executive director of the nonprofit organization. He has an incredible depth of knowledge in this field, and he also helped spearhead a 2015 Canadian Supreme Court case that they won to do with the production of concentrates and medical marijuana. That case was one of the cases that helped open the door, change the culture towards legalization and medical marijuana. But Ted makes a very compelling case that Canada has really failed in the delivery and the unrolling of medical marijuana, and that the patients that used to be served back when marijuana was prohibitive have been left behind in the new legal era, and that we've really failed. And that I asked Ted to come on the show because I was on a Reddit forum, and I was shocked to see how many people, even within the cannabis culture, just had no understanding on why, in the era of legal marijuana, Ted Smith was still running a legal dispensary. And so I asked him to come on the show if he would explain why this is going on, and he did. And I learned a lot. I thought I had an understanding of what was going on with medical marijuana, but we had a very short 25-minute conversation, but a lot of information was packed into that 25 minutes, and I really saw that it's a deeper problem than I had ever considered. And I can definitely see the need and why Ted is fighting so tirelessly. And so, yeah, great conversation. It's short, 25 minutes, but full of information. If you aren't really familiar with what's going on with medical marijuana in Canada, I can assure you, you are going to learn some things here, and that this is a kind of an untold story. And I don't think it would be an exaggeration to call it a bit of a crisis if you are one of these patients. And I think there's a pretty big claim to say there's a lot of underserved Canadians right now. Anyways, as usual, a little note for my YouTube followers or watchers. Thank you for sticking with me here. Just a little bit of your patience again today. I'm kind of a bit of a work in progress, but Ted's camera froze about 5 minutes into our conversation. Unbelievably, it kind of froze in a nice captured screenshot of him, which is pretty rare. So I just let it go, and I've added some captions to the video to keep your eyes busy, but my camera's fine. But I really implore you to try to, you can listen to it on the podcast or just watch it on YouTube, because there's some really valuable information in here, and it's really worth the listen or the watch. All right, thank you guys again for listening to the show. Very much appreciate it. If you like what you're hearing, you can support the show by sharing, subscribing, talking to your friends about it. Yeah, just really appreciate that you're here. Okay, without further ado, Ted Smith. Okay, well, thank you for coming on Bad Canadians, Ted. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for the
Looking forward to
invite.
talking to you. Yeah. There's a lot we could get into, and I know you just have about, a half hour to talk, and, I'd love to talk about your nonstop 30 years of, cannabis, medical marijuana advocacy. The fact I think you're running maybe the longest running compassion club in Canada now, and the Canadian Supreme Court challenge you took all the way to in 2015 that really helped open the door to legal marijuana and medical marijuana in Canada. But I thought maybe we could start, because I'm still surprised today how many people just don't understand in 2025, in the era of legal marijuana in Canada, why there's such a demand still for an illegal compassion club, a medical dispensary. I thought maybe we could start there and just explain why, because I think a lot of people think marijuana is legal in Canada. What's this guy doing still running this club? And so, yeah, I wonder if you could just talk to that for a moment.
Yeah, well, certainly the general public doesn't really appreciate the nuances of the situation here, and since legalization, the public has just assumed that those needing cannabis as medicine would be getting as good or better treatment than they were when it was outright prohibited. But that's not been the case. Certainly across Canada, patients have seen medical dispensaries like ours shut down either by force or fear. And so we find ourselves to be one of the last remaining organizations that's fighting for medical access. Most people in the industry either transitioned or tried to transition to the legal system or just went back underground. We're yeah, in a very rare situation. But the fact is that medical cannabis is actually less accessible now for patients. It's more expensive. The legal medical cannabis program is a mail order program only, and it's virtually impossible for a number of people to even have access to. But it's actually more expensive and more cumbersome with less supports than our club provides. And so when legalization came in, we looked at the legislation and realized that if we did comply, our organization, if it did survive, wouldn't be able to provide, virtually any of the services that we do now. And that just wasn't acceptable to us. And so we decided that it would be better for us to fight for a better system than to just simply roll over and let legalization take its course.
And so is a lot of this having to do with the fact that people that are using medical marijuana for long-term chronic conditions tend to want to take it like most medicine orally and take that, have, an edible kind of dose, and that those kind of people with chronic conditions also tend to need a high dosage for it to have any kind of therapeutic reaction. And so I hear like it's quite common that people start at like 300 milligrams of cannabis orally to treat what they're treating. And I think it's when I went into the legal dispensary the other day, I think it starts at about $1 a milligram for, if you want to walk into a legal dispensary and buy an oral dose, it's beyond prohibitive. It's like, it's a $300 plus fee, on a daily basis. And is that where really a lot of the problem is coming at?
Well, certainly one of the major problems we have is with the quality, both the milligrams and just the general uh, production of the edibles and topicals is inadequate. But even more generally than that, um, our patients need a place that they can talk to about their medical problems and how cannabis can help. The legal system does not allow recreational stores to give medical advice. And so when a cancer patient walks into a recreational store, they're being given virtually no selection for products that are designed for cancer patients. All the products in recreational stores are designed for recreational use with high THC and very little CBD products and very little knowledge about how to use them in combination with each other, how to manage symptoms or other pain medications and stuff. And so the lack of information is actually, the key point here. That patients that need medical marijuana have to either find or typically pay for a doctor to talk to them about it in the first place, and secondly, just purchase through the mail and get advice typically through texting, not an actual person sitting with them, looking at the products, showing them how to use them, talking about the different options in a face-to-face conversation. That does not happen right now.
Right.
Um, Approximately 60% of the people that go into recreational stores are using it for a medical purpose, but they can't have that conversation at all
Right.
because it's a recreational store. And so uh, patients deserve a space that they can walk into and communicate with a person that's knowledgeable about cannabis and find the best product for them. And it's absurd that option is not available to patients.
Yeah, I had the opportunity when I came in this morning to help kind of set up the little computer there for this podcast to see you give the introductory talk to one of the people coming in, your new patients. And And you could just see how much of like the clinic that the community basis around what you've done there, and just how um, I think I read on your website how you talked about community and that social connection and having people who can listen to you and understand you as being a therapy and a medicine in itself, and that's just missing everywhere else.
Very much so. And we've actually been getting a few amazing research projects done by Dr. Mary Lou Gagnon to this very point about how first the medical uses of cannabis were accidentally discovered by recreational users that got it illegally from a friend, and they just kind of accidentally were like, wow, that just happened to help with my pain or my nausea or my tremors or whatever the circumstances were, right? Medical marijuana wasn't taught to us by Western medicine. We learned it by ourselves with each other, and we've shared that information with each other to the point now where it's common knowledge and science is trying to catch up with what we've been doing for generations. And so that community, that opportunity to learn and to gain access to this medicine is part of the healing process, right? And so when a person, joins a club like ours and meets another person who's experienced very similar things, mentally and physically, and learned how to use cannabis as medicine, and helps a person walk through that journey of discovery. That's far more powerful and potent and empowering than it is to have a nurse or a doctor or a pharmacist tell you what to use when they've got no practical experience with that medicine at all,
Right. Yeah.
and they only know it, from a textbook or from some of the experiences they've been told. But really, there's enough people with the knowledge and experience with cannabis that could be teaching this and showing it to other patients that we don't need pharmacists involved. We don't need, maybe if there's a special circumstance that we need to talk to them, fine. But this medicine is best, served from one family member to another, basically.
And so, and how does that kind of stuff translate into official, like when people are going through the official system and trying to get some sort of medical marijuana provision? What is there a lot that the, let's say the physicians and doctors college of physicians and doctors just won't even recognize as proper therapeutic value for cannabis? Is there a lot of stuff that they just won't see as treatment and will deny people?
That is one of the huge barriers to the medical system. Is not only is it hard to find a doctor, but most of them have an entrenched opinion against the use of cannabis as medicine. They think of it just in its smoked form,
Yeah.
to the point where, like, we fought to 2015 against Health Canada because they argued that the only safe, effective way to use it as medicine was smoking it,
Yeah.
because they argued that eating it was not effective, or uh, it was just absurd, their arguments. Honestly, it's hard to even summarize them. Um, but the medical community has this deeply entrenched stigma, and because they got burned supporting tobacco and then finding out how dangerous it was, they're not looking to support anything else that is smoked. That's like their worst nightmare.
Right.
And so, we've got a situation here, where the medical community doesn't want to learn about cannabis. The college is completely opposed to it. There's no questions on the doctor's exams about cannabis at all. So it's like they don't have to learn anything about the endocannabinoid system or how THC works to kill pain. That's completely irrelevant to getting a doctor's license in Canada here. And so, because of these entrenched stigmas within the medical system, most people are finding it impossible to find a doctor that will sign a form now, especially when doctors can just tell you to go down the street and buy it in a recreational
Right.
store.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so that is more commonly happening with patients that have had doctors that have signed their licenses for years. And
Right.
their doctors are now starting to say, "Oh, I'm not doing that anymore because people are able to go here." And it's really unfortunate that there's this um, diminishing acceptance of cannabis as medicine within the medical community. But certainly, the Canadian Medical Association advocated for legalization so that the medical program could be eliminated entirely, because doctors don't want to talk to patients about cannabis at all. It's completely out of their learning experience, and it's plant-based medicine, which is something that they don't agree with at all because it's not clinical science. They want science and pharmaceutical drugs with all their double-blind tests and everything done on every single little product. And that's just not happening with cannabis. We're not getting a DIN number. We're not fitting the square peg into the round hole here. And so cannabis is legal as medicine, but only halfway there. Cannabis has never actually been an approved drug because it doesn't have a DIN number. Doctors are basically allowed to recommend it without actually technically prescribing it. And so cannabis is in this really awkward position in general, and it's being pushed out of the medical system and into this recreational, like, tax the hell out of it system. And for patients that need this product every day, in the highest dosage possible, it's just something that's completely unacceptable. They're already, even with the low prices that we have, having to decide between food and medicine on many days. So yeah, it's very frustrating that the legal system is so poor, because I would love to comply. I would love to have a legal license. I'd love to be working on creating a facility for palliative care patients using cancer or cannabis for cancer. Like, I have a lot of really important things that I need to work on. But until the access in storefronts is available and the high dosage the patients need, we're going to have to stay fighting on this side of the law for a while.
And so do you see opportunities that we're moving in that direction? Like, how did we go from, it felt like, back in their 2010s, 2015s, like it sounded like everything, the whole door to legal marijuana seemed to be getting opened with medical marijuana. That was the way the whole door was opened initially. And now it feels like the whole door got closed behind those patients when that first opened it. And uh, how do you explain that phenomenon of it, everybody being so behind medical marijuana to open the door and then just closing it right behind? Like, what happened to the energy and movement? Was it just sucked up by big corporations? And
Yeah,
yeah,
we've seen a complete corporate takeover of our industry from top to bottom that's just completely dismantled, disrupted, and destroyed the culture that used to be here.
yeah,
And so, like in 2015, we went to the Supreme Court of Canada and won a unanimous decision that made edibles and extracts legal. Until 2015, cities like Vancouver and Victoria recognized the fundamental flaws in Health Canada's program and were licensing dispensaries, illegal dispensaries, getting rezoning and license from cities across Canada pre-legalization. When we won at the Supreme Court of Canada, Wall Street and Bay Street in Toronto basically clued in, and they're like, hey, there's value added products here. We could be making money off of drinks and cookies and creams and all these other things. And rather than having, the community that was supplying and producing these products before do it, they want corporations to do it.
hmm,
So there was an immediate takeover on the supply end where large corporations had a very large advantage over small producers when they were trying to say we want small growers to transition. They weren't doing that at all. They were, allowing these massive multinational companies on stock exchanges to just milk the Canadian public from their retirement savings and invested in these companies that had hyperinflated value in the beginning. And so they've literally, like, not only ripped off the small mom and pop growers and dealers that used to supply this medicine,
yeah,
but then they even, like, had a little shot at all the people buying stocks and bonds, selling them, or stocks and selling them at hyperinflated value at these massive companies that were just ridiculous in every level. And so, and now, the stores are owned by, a bunch of rich white people that don't even use this plant. And we have these large companies that are producing most of the medicine or most of the cannabis in this country that have actually no connection to the consumer or the culture. They're not investing in the culture. So 420s, for example, have been decimated. Like, Vancouver, when it was prohibited, used to get some of the top acts. They'd have thousands of people, 100,000 people, I think, the one year on the beach over in Vancouver and Sunset Beach. Now the legal industry is doing nothing to develop the culture at all. So there's no acts, there's no uh, nothing happening for the community. They just look at their numbers and see how much more money they made that day, because that's the only thing that the producers of cannabis, the large producers in this country, are trying to do. Now there are some small producers. I shouldn't knock them all. I have many good friends that I know that have transitioned to the legal system and have gone through hell for that. There's literally maybe 6 companies in this entire country that have been successful in legalization,
Yeah, they didn't make it easy for the small batch, craft, high quality, the people that used to do all this business. They kind
right?
of really got shut out. You look at the economic model from the past, and you had a bunch of, like you say, mom and pops, because let's face it, the health, it was not a lot of, there's too much work and effort in this product. You could just, if you're organized crime, it's way easier to be in heroin or cocaine, and so it was mainly small mom and pops, and in an industry that by all accounts was at one point was rivaling forestry and fisheries, and that's all money that's coming from from BC and outside of BC back into local communities, into mom and pops. And now we've completely reversed that to where it's all big corporations that don't live in the communities making this product and taking money out of communities and putting it into their pockets. And yeah, it just seems like an absolute travesty of of the way we unrolled this whole legalization. It's yeah, it's unfortunate. I was wondering though if maybe you could you just share, like, a story of maybe a personal, like, a kind of the type of person that might come into your clinic, and kind of the how what you can offer them, just an example, so maybe the listeners can get the idea of the type of people you're serving, and what they're dealing with.
Okay, well, let's even just roll back to what you were saying when you were in here earlier and you saw a gentleman joining the club.
Hmm.
Um, here's a man in his late 60s, maybe even 70s, I'm not sure, but certainly an older gentleman that uses cannabis on a daily basis, who's got a couple of discs in his back that have deteriorated. And so he has pain down his legs, pain in his back, and has a hard time sleeping. He's stopped using pharmaceuticals a while ago because it was rotting his gut out, and he would rather be in pain than to deal with the stomach issues that he was starting to have, and has a little bit of experience with cannabis, but not much. So in the sign up, we ask a few questions of people, and one of the things we make sure they understand is how rosin is produced. There's lots of ways to make extracts out of cannabis using isopropanol or butter, olive oil, but now there's a way to use just simply heat and pressure that literally like squeezes the oil out of the plant. It's completely solvent free. We call it rosin. We use it in our capsules, but also our suppositories. We have a range of suppositories that we make here in our own kitchen and that we sell, up to 250 milligrams of THC in one single suppository. They're more designed for cancer patients, but they're also great for people with lower body pain, lower back pain, prostate issues, stuff like that, because cannabis works through your lymph system as well as through your blood system. And when you apply it in your lower body like that, the medicine stays around your back. So it works longer, because as opposed to taking a pill, which both breaks down in your stomach and then your liver metabolizes it a bit. So, it breaks down before if it gets to your lower back, and it floods your whole body when you take a pill, as opposed to a suppository, which is actually a lot more directed medicine. And plus we have topicals that he can use from the outside as well. But certainly suppositories are something that I don't think very few stores at all carry. I think there may be a few online companies, because, like I say, medical marijuana is happening online, but you're not going to walk into a recreational store and have a conversation, with someone about your lower back pain and using, solvent-free suppositories.
Hmm.
Um, and so, that's the kind of conversation that, again, is best had person to person, right?
Yeah.
Like having a conversation with someone over the phone about suppositories, like, it just feels weird,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
But like we can laugh about it and joke about it. And one of the other really wonderful benefits that comes from being in this club is seeing patients helping each other. And so it didn't happen a lot this morning, but often when we're doing signups, um, other patients will, sort of be listening a little bit on the side, and they'll start to make their recommendations and say, "Oh, this is what works for me, and I have this too." And like you hear that, like that lived experience benefiting, each other, and that kind of sharing just doesn't happen in a normal kind of pharmacy, but it happens here, and so yeah, that would just be one just like easy example to use of how patients can get access to products and conversations that are otherwise very difficult to find.
Well, yeah, I remember him even commenting how, when you mention the community and the room that you can kind of all imbibe in, and just he was talking about how he's been missing that in his life, and how his Bible study had shut down, and how
Right.
you could see he really needed that connection as well, and that yeah, that face
Hmm.
to face human connection. That's
Yeah, and while he was here, he even knew people that were coming in. He just lives a few blocks away. So yeah, like this is already his community.
right. And did you design this after the San Francisco Compassion Club?
Yeah. Dennis Perron and friends were running the San Francisco Cannabis Buyers Club, actually out of a four-story building that used to be the police station, apparently. And they had, like 100% support from their city council, and really the devastating effects of the AIDS impact, or of the AIDS epidemic, really drove that club into existence, and really was a large part of our club coming into existence as well.
Right, right. I know you have to wrap up here. I wanted to just hit that money angle one more time for a second, because when I'm looking at going into these legal dispensaries, to get something like an edible, and they're priced out at around $1 a milligram. And I look at how much are you when you I noticed that for some of your products, if you're a cancer patient, you can have half price access to it. Like, how much are you costing a milligram? Do you know what it comes down to if you like?
Okay, well, the capsule you just meant is the extreme, and recently we've secured a great relationship with an RSO supplier to be able to provide this. So it's a pretty new product, but yeah, we have capsules for cancer patients that are $2, and they're 140 milligrams of THC and about 37 milligrams of CBD, because this
Okay.
4-to-1 ratio is actually the sweet spot for killing cancer, and actually for most medicines. So anything in the future we're producing out of our kitchens is probably going to have that 4-to-1 ratio in it.
Okay.
But for now, yeah, so 140 milligrams of THC for $2. So that's 70 milligrams per dollar as opposed to 1 milligram per dollar. So that's like one. Another example would be our cookies. We got about 75 milligrams in our cookies. I guess at $1 a milligram, that'd be 75 bucks. We sell them for 3, which is the cost of the food and the labor,
Right.
because we make them out of leaf, which is free to us. And so the actual THC in the plant doesn't even cost us anything more than the time it takes to extract it using the oils.
So it's
And
like a
so,
that's like a difference between going out for a cup of coffee for $5 and paying not 50 but like $500 for a cup of coffee. Like, that's how much it's difference between what you pay a milligram at your place and a legal dispensary. It's what's making up that is that all branding, profit,
that's
and
gouging. That's
regulations?
taxes and gouging,
Wow, like, that's crazy.
right?
That's two decimal places it's moving
Yeah.
over. Like,
Yeah.
well, how can anybody justify that, especially when we're talking about a product that can be helping medical
Well,
patients?
then this is where there's this denial, this systematic denial of medical cannabis use.
Right.
And, yeah, it's really uh, something that no one can defend,
What?
which is partly why we're still going,
Yeah,
right?
because you
Like,
see it changing people's lives, and
yeah.
I could imagine how many Canadians are underserved right now. Like,
Oh,
just
millions,
yeah, untold.
literally millions.
Yeah, it could be helping so many people.
I
It's
know. That's why we're fighting, because we need places like this across Canada. Like, we should not be the exception, that we
wow.
should be the rule.
Yeah.
Like, and so yeah, we are quite aware of how lucky we are to still have this organization. But yeah, it's something where we certainly deserve much more, and we intend on fighting that through and making sure that these types of clubs do exist across Canada. We're just kind of hunkered down for the time being, but we're nowhere near done fighting yet.
Well, good on you, Ted. I know you're busy today and you're understaffed, so you're on a time crunch, so I'll let you go. We'll just say goodbye to everybody. But if you don't mind just staying on the line for a second here, that'd be great.
Of course.
Okay, well, thank you again, and really appreciate everything you do.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Uh,
Every chance to explain our situation is important to us.
all right, thanks. All right, have a good day there, Ted.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening. If you'd like to support the podcast, please subscribe or share with your friends. Bad Canadians, Working Class Roots, A Free Speech Lens, and Canadian Contrarians.